welcome David Lubar to Spring Garden Elementary School.
Big school.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
I love coming here.
Yeah. At what age did you start writing or illustrating /illustrating?
I started writing when I was in elementary school. I wrote jokes, I wrote poems, I wrote songs, and when I got older, pardon?
What grade?
It was a long time ago. I would say maybe 3rd or 4th grade. And then when I was in high school, I was writing stories, but I did not sell any stories until I got out of high school. So in my early 20s, I was writing and selling my work.
One of your relatives ever an author?
One of my uncles did some writing for something called the WPA. That was during, I guess it was after World War II when the president, or maybe it was before, it was the president wanted to give people work, so they came up with all these public work projects, and my uncle was involved in writing some books about certain towns in New Jersey.
And what was the title of the first book that you wrote?
The first book I wrote was called Lydia and the Gremlin, and it never got published because being the first book I wrote, it was not that good. But I learned by writing it. I actually wrote 5 novels right after college, and none of them ever got published. But it was a great experience.
What inspired you to become a writer/illustrator?
I think, well, I've never slashed an illustrator, but actually I'm just a writer. But I think what inspired me the most was the great books I read, because they really filled my mind with ideas, and then I started getting my own ideas, which made me want to write my own stories.
Did you ever have a favorite author?
Did I ever have a favorite author? Yeah, I've had various favorite authors throughout my life. When I was a kid, I loved Walter Brooks, who wrote these books called Freddie the Pig, and I'm sure I would feel different about those books now. Then I had certain science fiction authors as I was growing up who were my favorites, like Robert Heinlein, and I have some favorite authors now, like Robert Parker and John Steinbeck and Catherine Patterson, who wrote Bridge to Terabithia.
Was it your imagination that caused you to write such silly stories?
It has to be my imagination. I think that my imagination gets a lot. Actually, my imagination and my subconscious, I think they work together and conspire to produce silly stories.
How did you come up with all of those short stories?
How did I come up with all those short stories? By coming up with lots of short ideas.
Like the ones that you showed us up there?
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Lots of brainstorming. Lots of brainstorming.
What is your favorite book that you wrote?
My favorite book I wrote is Dunk. I just love the Jersey Shore and the boardwalk, and just the whole idea of the dunk tank is so wonderful.
It's
Yeah,
my
I'm
favorite
going to
book
Ocean
that you
City,
wrote
Maryland.
too. I like that book too.
Thank you very much.
Oceana.
I read it 5 times. How long does it usually take you to write a book?
You know what? There is no one usual time. I've written books as quickly as a month, and I've written books that have taken 2 or 3 years, so it really varies.
What career did you have before you started?
Well, I started writing right out of college, and then I got into a career in video game design and programming. I was doing video games from about 1982, which is slightly before you were born, till about 1995. Mostly originally working with the very first Atari, and then the Game Boy, and the Nintendo, and the Super Nintendo. But nothing really modern like
So
the
you did work with
PS3.
the Game Boy.
So you did?
What games did you...
I did Home Alone for the Game Boy is my best known, and I did Frogger 2, which I guess is also pretty well known.
So thanks for coming, David Lubar. It was definitely a pleasure for you to
Yeah.
come.
It was great for me. I come here every year, and it's one of my favorite things to do because.
I really like all your books.
Thank you.
A lot.
They are great. Like
I read almost all
I
of
read
them
this
already,
one. Haven't really read a bunch of this.
I read half of it. Like
Well-
I read some short stories in it.
That's
And
your
I read
homework.
Numbed too, the sequel.
Good. I'm glad you did. You must have amazing teachers to get all these books
Yeah.
into your hands.
And
Yes.
Miss Long.
And Mr.
and Miss
Siegfried,
Siegfried
a
and
reading
Miss-
class.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Great. Well, it was a pleasure.
it was.
Thank you for coming.
I have to go home and write more stories.